kind of break down for you just so you can understand the significance of this company and why you want to sort of pay attention to what they're doing and how it actually affects your life, whether you're an investor or not. In fact, also the other thing too is you guys know one thing I'm super proud of is the fact that Black business school students invest more than other people. Most Americans are not in the stock market. The overwhelming majority, about 90% of Black business school students are in the stock market. And that is a big, a big game changer for Black wealth because the stock market is the number one wealth driver in America. That's literally the number one way to build wealth in America. So if you say, I want to build wealth and you have no interest in the stock market, then that's like saying to me, I don't want to build wealth. I just want to say that I'm building wealth, right? So let's not do that. Let's not make that mistake. Just give me, just take my word for it as a guy who's read 10,000 research papers and various areas of finance. The stock market, if you want wealth, that's where you want to be. And so BlackRock is interesting because BlackRock is this company that they manage $14 trillion in assets, which is just wild. That isn't a ridiculously large amount of money. They absolutely dwarf all the other companies that are out there. There's nobody that's close. I think Vanguard, Vanguard's number two, and they're the measly little 7, 8, 9 trillion. But literally, the amount of assets that Vanguard manages exceeds the gross domestic product of the United Kingdom, right? That's how. So literally, they could be their own country, and which means that they are almost. I'm not going to say too big to fail, but too big to be played with. How about that? Too big to be played with. That might be another term that we can use to describe that. So BlackRock is as they make money hand over fist. There's just sort of this interesting fascination with understanding what they're doing. I know I pay close attention to them because if you're not sort of following these trends, then what can happen is you can miss opportunities, right? And you guys know what the word poor stands for. The word poor stands for what? It stands for, put it in the chat. It stands for passing over what? Passing over opportunities repeatedly, right? And so ultimately, what I'm going to do is talk you through some of this so that you're not poor. And by the way, shout out the city you're from. Let me know what city you guys are from. I always like to know what cities you came in from. Let's see. Hey Calvin, how you doing, man? Can you guys hear me okay? Am I coming through all right? Am I coming through with the lag? Because I'm wondering if there's a lag. Okay. I'm gonna test it out. One, two, three, four. Is it coming through okay? Is there a lag? Okay, good. All right. So I see Memphis and Houston and New York City and South Haven. Is that Mississippi or Missouri? Let me know, Al. All right, Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, I had a really mean girlfriend from Nashville a long time ago. Yeah, it was a terrible experience. But anyway, so here's the deal. So with BlackRock, companies like this, I think can really give you tremendous insights into where the world is going, where the economy is going. Because what happens, one thing about investing is that a lot of people think investing is about sort of luck and timing, like picking the right stock at the right time, making sure you're invested in the right company, that kind of thing. And what a lot of people don't understand is that there's a big impact of capital flow, right? If you're investing like wherever the money flows, that tends to be where the wealth grows, right? The money flows where the wealth grows. And so capital, aka liquidity, ends up becoming kind of like water flowing to different parts of the city. So wherever the water is flowing, that's where the grass is growing, right? So the wealth is the grass and the water is the capital, right? And I know I got bars, right? I'm just I mean just the talent, man. Just I think I'm in the wrong profession. I really do. Jay-Z, look out. So anyway, so the point of the matter though is to say that when you're talking about like how the game works and where the game could be rigged, right? When people think that the game's a little bit rigged, it is rigged. I've told you that it's rigged. But the thing about it is just because it's a rigged game don't mean it's not a game you can't win, right? Just because the game's a little crooked don't mean the crookedness can't work in your favor. So if you know the game is rigged, it's not about knowing if the game is fair. It's really about excuse me, knowing how the game works. That's really it. It ain't about a fair game does not automatically mean that you're going to get ahead, right? Just because the playing field's level doesn't mean that you're going to get opportunities to build wealth. If I had a choice between being in a fair game where I don't know what's going on versus being in a rigged game where I know who's doing what and where and why and how, then I'd rather be in the second game. You understand? Like I'd rather know what's and oh sheesh, look at that. Hit my camera against the thing. Um, and so as I think Irma mentioned in here, she says life is not fair. That's true. Life isn't fair, and I think that this and that's the unfortunate thing about being black sometimes is that I feel like sometimes they give us this obsession with fairness, right? This obsession with with like believing that fairness is the key to freedom, and I don't think it is. I'm not saying that life shouldn't be fair. It should be, but I don't really know if America's ever going to be fair, right? You live in a capitalist society. Rich people are always going to have the advantage. Wealthy people, wealth is always going to move things. The rich man is not going to have the power. Is not going to be equal to the poor man, and that's unfortunate to some extent, but it's just truth, right? But then it gives you an opportunity. It says, okay, so if I want my children and my family to be powerful and strong, then I'm going to prepare them when it comes to wealth and economics. I'm going to get them the information that they need. We're not going to spend all our time just watching basketball and football and everything else. We're going to also spend our time figuring out how to win the game of economics. So the game other people playing or are playing will never be as important as the game that I'm playing. Because believe me, you are in a game, you are in a competition, and if you don't win, then what happens is, unfortunately, the loss is it ends up turning into a type of slavery. So let's talk a little bit about BlackRock so we can kind of get some perspective on this. Let me see. I put together some notes on this. And I lost my freaking notes, but I got other notes. I got backup on top of backup. I got just like I got bars for days, I got backup for days. So all right, so here are a few things you should know about BlackRock. All right, first off, um, I mentioned to you all that they have more money than or their assets under management exceeds the gross domestic product of England. That's a lot of money. A lot of their money is tied up in things that you're connected to. A lot of you don't even know that you're also invested in BlackRock. You may you may think that you're not, but you are. If you have a retirement account, a 401k, 403b pension plan, or IRA, there's a very good chance that some of that money sits in a BlackRock fund. If you are invested in index funds or ETFs, anybody buy any index funds or ETFs? Anybody? Then there's a good chance that you are invested in BlackRock. They run iShares, which is the largest ETF family in the world. Anybody got a pension? Anybody here had used to have one? Got used to have one? Anybody's parents had one? Well, a lot of employee pension plans are invested in BlackRock. A lot of times with pensions, you don't invest your own money, your employer invests. And if they're smart, they invest in places that are diversified and safe. BlackRock has a reputation for being diversified and safe. Anybody got insurance? Um, Anybody got insurance or maybe an IUL, an annuity or anything? Anybody? Raise your hand. Give me a yes. If you have insurance, life, health, auto, home, which everybody should please tell me y'all got insurance, man. Don't be out here uninsured. Well, BlackRock is a company that insurance companies go to invest those premiums that they get from you. So the way that business works is you're paying the premium for the safety of having insurance, and they're taking that money, they're investing it in the background. Capital must always be put to work, right? They're not taking the money going, throwing it up at the strip club. They're going straight to Wall Street and they're investing this money in companies like BlackRock. That's so you may think you're not involved with BlackRock, but man, you're all up in there. You're all up in there. Can't help it. They no matter what you do, you can't get away from it. So speaking of insurance, you know what's really fascinating? There was a company. Anybody ever heard of a company called Lloyds of London? Give me a guess if you've heard of Lloyds of London. Lloyds of London is this British company that's been around for hundreds of years. And they started off, I think, insuring like ship merchants when they would go like on journeys to the New World and stuff like that, right? So they've been making bread since bread was ever a concept. Um, Well, there was a thing that they had where it was like a prestigious position you could have. I forgot what they call them. Um, Not takers, but it's like a word. Backers, but it's not backers. It's more fancy. Like I don't know how to be fancy like my British friends. I don't know how. I'm not fancy like that. But there's a word for the elite in London that get to that are backers for this company, and it's a beautiful deal on the surface, right? Lloyds of London comes and says, "We'd like to invite you to be one of the backers." But again, that's not the word. It's another word. I don't have the word. It's Saturday morning. Forgive me. And so it's underwriting Christian, but they use it's England. You can't use regular words for nothing. You can't say underwriter. You gotta have it be something that sounds fancy. Right. So anyway, I love my London friends, by the way. Every time I go to London and I do an event, there's so everybody shows up. So I love y'all 100%. They got some of the best black people ever in London. So don't be sleeping. Don't be talking bad about my black family in London. Love y'all. Anyway, so here's what they would do. They would invite elite people to be the backers of these insurance policies. And the deal was pretty nice. It basically would just say, "Hey, look, if it, we'll pay you money every month, a lot of money every month, and what you have to do is agree that if this catastrophic event happens, that you're going to be one of the financial backers that's going to help make the losses whole." That's how insurance works, right? You pay a premium for coverage. And so they'd be like, cool, because for a long time it was seen as an easy way to make money. It's like okay, this almost never, these things almost never happen, but you get paid, consistently, just in case, right? But it's like extreme, what they call tail risk. Well, what happened was Lloyd's of London, that they made a big mistake. They started having people writing policies who were not actually connected to the consequences of the policies. That's a standard interest misalignment problem that we study in finance tremendously, right? So you have misaligned incentives. The people that were writing the policies were not the ones who were going to have to pay if things went bad. You never want to be in a situation where the person making the decision is not the one who's going to experience the consequences of that decision. Does that make sense? Like if you have a teenager who knows that if they crash the car, they're not going to have to pay for it, the dad's going to pay for it, then that's going to be lead to bad outcomes. He's going to drive the car extra fast. He's not going to care as much because, well, I mean, if I crash the car, and somebody else is going to handle this. It's not going to be me. Wall Street bankers, same thing. They when they know that the government's going to bail them out if they make a mistake, then they'll go out and just take all kinds of risks because they're like, well, I ain't got to worry about nothing. I'm just out here trying to get paid. Or the mortgage crisis in 2008. That's kind of how that happened. Misaligned incentives, basically. So Lloyd's of London created that issue as well. And the crazy part was that they started writing policies because their goal is to maximize profits. That's it. They didn't care about the risk. And they were writing policies on like asbestos related sorts of things. And then so what happened was all of these claims started pouring in insane amounts of money, and they were also what they call correlated, which is another taboo of insurance. You don't want your risk to be connected, where one domino falls down and all the other dominoes start falling down. That's what happens when you have big systematic problems like the asbestos things, one where it's like, oh, asbestos is wonderful, let's put it everywhere. Then it's like, oh my God, it kills people, gives them all these problems. So then suddenly you got an avalanche of lawsuits. Cigarettes, right? Cigarettes, oh my God, we make so much money, let's get everybody smoking. Then suddenly people are dying of lung cancer. Now you got 10 million lawsuits, right? Same thing is true, will probably eventually be true for alcohol, because now they're starting to find that alcohol causes cancer and dementia, and you're poisoning yourself. And I had the biggest fights when I was at Syracuse University because we had so many damn alcoholic undergrads, and they just sort of almost like, I'm not gonna say they promoted it, but it felt like they were like, I got into a fight. I was ready to fight this guy. He was a real tall brother. He was a professor in another department. I got so mad at him because I said, why are you constantly encouraging these people to get together to drink? He was the head of the Black Law Student Organization, like the faculty advisor. And in my mind, when you say I'm the advisor, I take that seriously. Like, oh, I'm the mentor. I got to come correct. I got to make sure I guide these young people to make good choices. This damn son of a bitch had them every time, every email. I was on the listserv. Every email he sent out was a happy hour. Every single time he would invite them to do something, it was happy hour, free drinks, free drinks. I said, does everything we do got to involve drinking? And it was on the listserv, and then he comes back at me like you're a hater and blah blah blah. And so you had two professors at Syracuse fighting in front of the students. I said, this is such a bad example. Black men should not be out here fighting like that. Anyway, but here's the thing. Later on, I went to lunch with him, and I saw this guy down like 6 or 7 drinks, like while we were eating. And I said, "Oh, I get it now." Yeah, I think my father was with me. My father was a detective at the time. You on the phone know that my father was a cop for 25 years. And as a detective, detectives observe everything. And he was breaking down all the people we ate with. And he said, "Oh, yeah, that guy," he said, "never tell him any of your secrets because he's just an alcoholic. And drunks will always tell your secrets." Right. So I got that kind of wise advice from my father about all kinds of stuff. And it saved me. Believe me, it saved my butt. So anyway, long story short, when I saw how much he drank, and then it's really it haunts me because after that he drove home, and I didn't go to ask like, well, how's he getting? I was young, so it was a mistake. But and I hate drunk drivers, by the way. Don't get drunk and get behind the wheel because you're gonna hurt somebody, man. And then people will hate you as much as I don't like you. Like I like y'all, but I don't like drunk drivers. My daughter was almost killed by one. But anyway, long story short, I remembered like, oh, okay, now I get it. And here's the thing: eventually, massive lawsuits will come from alcohol. At some point, there's going to be just an avalanche of suits where people are going to start suing for the dementia. Like you're shrinking your freaking brain. Why would you do that? From the cancer. I've seen this up close. I have relatives who drank too much, and I saw the dementia and the cancer, as well as all the other physical problems that occur. So alcohol is going to be one of those as well. You've heard me talk about the gambling addiction issue. There was just another. I remember how many of y'all have heard me talk about the gambling thing? Give me a yes if you've sort of been here where I've been screaming and ranting about this for months. I've been really like begging people. So that's why I was in Florida this week. I did 2 interviews where I was like, okay, I want to talk about this more because I think people just really need to think about this. So long story short, there was another. Did anybody see this? There was another major set of arrests. I think 40 NCAA players are under investigation for fixing games. And again, I reiterate, this is not even the tip of the freaking iceberg. If you see one roach in the kitchen, there's not one roach in the kitchen. Do you understand what I'm saying? If you see 3 roaches in the kitchen, that's not 3 roaches you got in your kitchen. That's like three. That's like 150 roaches, right? So 40 guys getting caught means there's 400, 1,000 that didn't get caught yet. And it's not going to stop. It's an addiction. Addictions do that. And young people don't always know how to make the best choices. Your brain's not even fully developed till you're 25 or 26 years old. So basically, this is going to be a massive, massive problem. So eventually, you'll see lawsuits come from that as well. Because right now, because what happens is the money just kind of blinds you. It's like good sex. You out of your mind for a little while because the dopamine hit and all that. But I will tell you at the end of the day, that's going to be a big issue. So that's what happened with Lloyds of London. They started getting all these lawsuits. And do you know, there's a lesson here, I promise. Do you know that many, many wealthy families, many families in England that have been wealthy for 300 years lost everything. Everything was wiped out completely, and it was because they would get, something would go bad, and they'd say, well, the judgment was for $8 billion, and they'd be like, well, I don't have $8 billion. I've only got, I got 400 million. I thought that made me good, and they're like, well, we need to take that. We're about to take that. So here's the deal. So next thing you know, they're selling the country estates and the Rolls Royces, and they don't have the servants anymore. And what this really speaks to generally is, um, well, number one, I wouldn't go into business with people that, they say you don't write a check that your ass can't cash. So I wouldn't be in a business situation where one person was making the decisions, but I was taking the risk. This will happen to you when you become wealthy. Some of you already are there. Some of you are going to be there. I promise you. Keep paying attention. We'll get you there. Um, what'll happen is you're going to get business deals offered to you where people will say, hey, I've got a great idea, and because I know that you got 10 million in the bank, I want to start a lemonade stand and we're gonna make the best lemonade ever and blah 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 blah. You say, well, how much money do you need? I need $150,000, right? And what's happened is they're gonna be like, yeah, you take all the risk, and then so that means that if things go bad, you get all the bad stuff, but if things go good, we'll split the money, right? And that's not a good deal for you. That's putting you in a risky situation. That's how a lot of athletes go broke because they have a lot of broke ass friends that have great ideas, but no experience executing these ideas and no concept of preservation of capital. So they'll come along and they'll see that you just signed $100 million contract. So of course you can give me, excuse me, $500,000 to start my dream business, right? But I'm sorry, but a dream is not reality. A dream business is not a real business. A dream business is a fantasy. Fantasies don't pay the bills. Ideas don't pay the bills. Paying the bills pays the bills. So so a lot of the athletes will go ahead because they want to be down with the homies or whatever. They want to keep it real and whatever. So they'll write the big check for their friend's bowling alley. Next thing you know, all the money's gone, or they run into an impossible situation where the only way the business can maintain itself is if you keep investing money. So you end up throwing good money after bad money, right? Because now you're stuck. Now you got to keep on pouring more money. Whatever they say that they need is never what they actually need. And remember, an asset has to be maintained, just like a house. If you own a house, you got expenses related to that house. If you start a business, you got expenses that relate to that business. That first 150 got you off the ground, but that's not going to pay your employees forever, especially if you're not making revenue at the level that you need to yet. So just know that making that decision to start means you're also making the decision to maintain. It's not a hit it and quit it one night stand scenario. It is an ongoing relationship where you're going to have to commit to constantly pouring into that thing that you began. So with the folks that lost their entire fortune with the Lloyds of London thing. It was not just the issue of misaligned incentives. A lot of people might want to send someone to war, but don't want to go to war themselves. Meaning the insurers who are writing the policies to maximize profit were not the ones who were going to have to pay. They had what you call limited liability. The people that were the backers, which they framed this as a prestigious role. A lot of times that's what happens. They'll cloak something in prestige and people will want to do it because everyone instinctually wants to be part of the club or they want to be accepted or they want to be seen in a certain light. Well, sometimes people will have you walking right up in the fire because they know because they understand what it's going to take to get your ego going, right? So be really careful about that. People will literally have you going into stuff that will jeopardize everything and you'll do it because you feel like you finally made it. You want to be one of the cool kids. It's no different from the eighth grade, when you wanted to hang out with the cool crowd, but they were the ones who were getting put on detention. They were the ones headed to jail. They were the ones who were smoking cigarettes after school and getting into in drugs and all this other stuff. But you want to be cool, so you want to hang out with them, even though that could ruin your life. Well, the same thing is true with investing. A lot of people I've seen so many cases where people will make bad investments or go into a bad business because they just want to be connected with certain people or in a certain crowd. Like I think about hip hop. I had a long conversation with a young rapper one time who was very good friends with a rapper who got murdered in a Denny's. I don't remember the rapper's name, but him and this rapper were really tight. They performed together. This guy's career was taken off, and then he gets killed. And this other guy, his career was tied to his. Like they were doing stuff together, so he was excited because this might be his first big break. Then suddenly he's dealing with the trauma of his friend getting killed, and I remember I said, why would you want to be a rapper? He said, well, because I want to be up there with Drake. And I said, you don't understand. A lot of these guys don't have a great life. They have money, but it's very difficult to go everywhere and know someone might kill you or you can't go to the West Coast because the Crips are mad at you, or you go to a club and guys are going to test you and want to, like it's when rappers are just dropping like flies. I said, I don't know if you want to go into an industry like that. Like, why would you? I said, are you sure? I said, yeah, you can make a little money, but there's a lot of ways you can make money that don't involve you having to die at the age of 26. Tupac died at 25, 26 years old. He's a legend for sure, but he's a dead legend. So the question is, and most rappers don't ever even get to the status of a Tupac. But I don't know. I think if I had a choice between, I don't know, how many of you would rather die at 25 and be a legend or live to be 75 and have just a good life, right? Just maybe just become a millionaire instead of a multimillionaire. Now, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe dying at 25 is romantic for some people. Maybe that's exciting. I didn't want to die at 25. I used to be 25 and I didn't want to trade places with Tupac. I don't care how many albums he sold or how many people admired him. He's great. Tupac's the man, but he's a dead man. So the point of the matter is not in any way to disparage or make fun of what happened to him, but just to say that sometimes the money can lure you in. It can reel you into situations that are ultimately very, very harmful for you, but we feel like they're safe and they're good because there's the perception of money that's attached. All right. So anyway, but before we get back, I'm going to talk. I want to talk. I have a couple more points I want to make about the BlackRock thing. Before I do that, I want to mention one. We're going to meet for stock options class on the 20th. So if you're not, if you don't know how to generate income with stock options, it's the greatest way on earth to make money. It's far better than real estate and all these other things that people do. No disrespect, of course, but I love it actually. So if you want to get into that and learn that, you can go to drboyceprime.com, drboyceprime.com. And our B1 story for today is from El Haj Harris. El Haj, I don't know if El Haj is here, but El Haj, I've seen his name so many times. I have so much respect for you, man. He says the Black Business School has allowed me to become financially free, selling stock options, investing into long-term portfolios, and the chance of learning about multifamily properties, which I closed on a triplex in 2021. Awesome. Wow. Let's clap for that. A black man that now owns a triplex. El Haj, are you here? Everybody, give him like a congratulations. That's really awesome. So he closed on a triplex, which means that I don't know if he's living there, but if you've heard, some of the smart real estate folks like Constance Carter talk about this, you can live in one unit and rent out the other two, and the other two are paying your rent in the one that you live in. It's a really great process. And so El Haj is making the right moves because he owns the real estate, he owns the stock, and he's generating the income from the options. It's the sort of the multi-pronged investing strategy that is most impressive about that. And this is something that the people from Lloyds of London could have learned a long time ago, is that I don't care how good a situation is, I don't care how good an investment looks. You never ever put your whole fate on one type of asset or one type of strategy or in one business, right? You do that, then that means if conditions change, and that's what happened with Lloyd's of London. Things were pretty cool for about 300 years. Then suddenly, as asbestos rises, suddenly the market changes, and then suddenly all these people who had spent 300 years building their wealth lost it all, right? So the best way to avoid that is you spread it out as much as you can. You have pockets over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, over here, over here. It takes a lot of discipline to do that because the temptation is to play whack-a-mole and try to put everything in the place that you believe has the most money and the most wealth. So I don't think El Haj is here today, but I've seen El Haj here a lot. So he said, in fact, he says here, best education I've ever received. I breathe, sleep, and wake up thinking about the Black Business School since 2017. Thanks, Doc. Well, you're welcome, Milhaj. Thank you, man. You inspired me and got me going today. I may text out the link again at some point and ask you all if you want to submit your story. I'd like to hear it. It really gives me fuel for sure. And I'd like to just know I don't want you to keep any secrets if you don't mind. I want to know what you're doing with this. Like I want to know what moves you're making, and even if there's small moves, like even if you and the small moves can be really big. Like you can actually just you deciding, hey, I talk to my kids about money twice a week or something. We used to never talk about money. That's big. That's huge. That's so huge. You have no idea how huge that is. My grandmother had no idea that she was creating a finance professor when she bought me savings bonds when I was 7 years old. Yeah, she didn't know. She wasn't thinking about that. She was a Census Bureau worker. She worked for the government and she made less than $20,000 a year, and she bought the savings bond for her grandson because she just knows that saving your money is good, and that's it. But that opened my eyes to compound interest, right? So the key idea is that sometimes you ain't got to carry the torch and do everything. You just got to light the spark. If you light the spark, then somebody else will do the work, right? At some point, I'm gonna retire from all this. I'm gonna stop doing anything. I'm there at some point. I might even stop breathing, and or I assume I am. Everybody does. And when I stop breathing, it's like that. At that point, I want other people doing the work. I don't want to keep going forever, right? So just remember that. Just light the spark. So all you gotta do is light the spark. All right. So a couple more things about BlackRock. Here's one thing that a little secret in terms of knowing where you might want to consider putting money. You might want to pay attention to where the BlackRocks are putting their money. Why? Not because they're able to predict the future, but because they create the future. Do you know the difference? Like the BlackRocks, the Warren Buffetts, they don't predict the future. They tell you what the future is going to be. They're almost at the status of an economic guide. They get to decide what the future, like they're not like, oh, I believe that this industry's no. They put their money in the sectors that where they see growth and possibility. But just the fact that they end up even going in that direction by definition causes that industry to rise because they're deploying so much capital there. So if you want to know where BlackRock is headed, I mentioned AI, massive companies like NVIDIA, Microsoft, Broadcom. I own substantial amounts of all three of those companies. Pay attention. I've told you extensively. AIQ. AIQ is my favorite AI ETF. So there you go. They're also looking into alternative investments. This is interesting. Private market style exposure, like private credit. That's a big one. So a couple companies there. Blackstone, ticker symbol BX. That's BX. Put it in the chat, please, because I know someone's gonna need me to repeat it, and I may not be able to. Brookfield Corporation, BN. Brookfield Corporation, BN, and Blackstone, BX. Emerging markets and frontier growth. This is outside the U.S. These are emerging market economies. So they have an iShares MSCI Emerging Markets ETF. That ticker symbol is EEM. That's EEM. And then they have a what they call a FTSE Emerging Market ETF. That's VWO, Victor, Water, Octopus. Also, they're looking into bond innovation and yield-focused strategies that generate income. One is they have a bond ETF called the iBox High Yield Corporate Bond ETF. That ticker symbol is HYG. It's not exciting, not going to make you a ton of money, but it'll generate consistent income, especially if the market goes south. HYG, and then they have a 20-year Treasury bond ETF, TLT. So more conservative investors that are in the room, maybe you're in retirement, TLT and HYG might be something worth looking at. Next, they're looking into a lot of thematic technological structural changes like robots. I mentioned the robot ETF that I like, which is BOTZ, BOTZ. I own a lot of bots. And then there's one on cybersecurity, CIBR. So cyber, CIBR, and bots, BOTZ, are interesting to me because as quantum computing emerges and you mix quantum computing with AI, it's just going to be a whole new reality. And cybersecurity is going to just evolve completely. And there are going to be risks and threats that they didn't anticipate. And it's just going to be a wild, wild west kind of scenario. So a lot of the cybersecurity companies are trying to prepare for that because basically with quantum computing, they can hack almost anything. It kind of becomes crazy. All right, so here, let me show you all something. Let's take a little field trip to Instagram real quick. I want to show you something. Remember, what was it? Fire Marshal Bill. Let me show you something. That was a long time ago. All right, so let me show you something. All right. All right, so here is maybe this might be fun for your kids or something. I thought it would be fun to take the let me see. I hope this plays. There we go. Okay. I thought it might be fun to take like various financial assets and make them into like these animated characters because with the power of AI, we can now accomplish pretty much anything we want. So here is something that I thought would be fun, and maybe I was thinking about making this like an animated kind of thing for kids to learn about investing. So I'm gonna share my sound. Let me know if you can hear okay, and I'm gonna play this right now. So here it goes. Give me a yes if you can hear this.
Hi, I'm a treasury. When you own me, you're lending money to the U.S. government. I'm steady, reliable, and I help protect your money and keep it safe. I'm private equity. I invest in big businesses feet to lawn, but only for the long term. Hello there, I'm a bond. When you invest in me, you're lending money. I pay you back with interest, nice and steady. I may not move fast, but I'm dependable. Hey, I'm a stock. When you own me, you own a piece of a company. Hey, I'm an ETF. I bundle lots of investments together. When you invest in me, you don't pick just one thing.
Hey, I'm crypto. I'm digital money that lives on the internet. I move fast, I don't need banks, and anyone can use me. I can grow big toe, but I can change fast.
I am gold. I have held value for thousands of years. When money gets weak, people trust me to stay strong. I'm commodities. I'm the raw materials the world needs.
Hi, I'm a REIT. I own lots of buildings that make money. When you invest in me, you earn money from rent. I'm a startup with big ideas and big dreams. If you invest in me early, you could grow a lot if I succeed.
I'm an annuity. I'm all about steady income you can count on. When you invest in me, I can pay you money regularly. I'm cash. I'm money you can use right now. But if I just sit around too long, I don't grow much. That's why smart investors don't keep all their money as me. Hi, I'm a treasury.
Okay, so what did you guys think about that? You guys like that, or you want me to sort of add to that over time? If you want me to, I can. Now what do you think? Was that cool? Yeah, I don't know. It was just something that came to mind, and I thought it would be something fun to do. And actually, so what I'll do is I'll add to that. We'll do more of that. And it's interesting, right? Because it kind of shows like all the different ways you can invest. All right. And I personally believe if you want your kids ready for the future, grandkids, yourself, etc., learn all these things. You want to have just a whole laundry list of all the different ways that people make money, because a job is just one thing you could do to make money. There's nothing wrong with having a job, but there's so many different things you can do, right? And by the way, the URL kittyboss.com, there's a training there called How to Turn Your Child into a Millionaire. It's easy, it's straightforward. There's a simple process that I put together. I did a whole training on it. So if you want millionaire kids and millionaire grandkids, feel free to go to kittyboss.com, KIDDIE, and feel free to take a look at that. And of course, we have the financial flashcards and workbooks and things like that. And so maybe you can help me figure out like ways to expand that. Maybe there could be episodes or something. And let's see, someone says, please take these characters and build them into a game in Roblox that kids can learn from. That would be interesting. Maybe an interactive game. Look at that. Okay, Paula. Thank you, man. Thank you, ma'am, for that idea. That's a good one. All right. So yes, multiple streams of income is everything. It's really one of these things where there's, especially in this economy, because there's so much added risk. You want to make your money in multiple ways. You don't want to make your money from one place. Okay, so I see a couple questions. Al says, would you ever be able to connect with John Hope Bryant to be part of the ABC or other spaces? I know John, and John and I see each other about once or twice a year, usually maybe at events hosted by George Fraser, stuff like that. He's a great guy. I've known him for a long time. And I think we did invite him to the ABC. If I haven't, I'll text him and I'll invite him. So it's a great idea. The kids' website is kittyboss.com. It's right above my head. So just look above my head and that's how the spelling is laid out. Khalil, Dr. B, did you hear China sold all U.S. bonds? I don't think they sold all the U.S. bonds. That would be shocking if they did that. I mean, of course, that would be, pretty impactful because China holds a lot of U.S. bonds. I don't think they sold them all, because believe me, the bond market would just be going crazy if that happened. But that is a kind of a national security issue where if they decide to just dump all their bonds, and that could hurt the United States. But remember, the reason China doesn't always punch is because the U.S. knows how to counterpunch. So, right now, the balance of power, it is a balance. It is a seesaw. So they go too hard, Trump comes back hard, and it just becomes, and then they come back harder. And so for example, the invasion of Venezuela, or I guess it's not technically an invasion. They just went in and kidnapped the president. I think that's an invasion, but whatever. It's up to you. So, tomato, tomato, right? That directly impacts Chinese and Russian interests. They had weapons and business deals in Venezuela. And the Chinese probably did respond, but most of what they did was more like say, we're outraged that you did that. We vehemently reject what you did, but they didn't say, okay, we're going to go and do something to you, right? Because a lot of people thought maybe the Chinese would say, okay, well, you want to do that in Venezuela. Well, we're going to go over here to Taiwan where we know you have a business interest and we're going to disrupt your money. But they haven't done that. Taiwan's been sitting there and they've been licking their chops about invading Taiwan, but they know that that would cause a retaliation from the United States, which could lead to World War III, actually, because they make so many important microchips in Taiwan. And so, one of the other big structural changes that just happened recently is the Trump administration made a deal with Taiwan Semiconductor. That's another stock that I own, TSMC, and they basically, at least on paper, got them to commit to making a substantial investment to build a lot of their chips in the United States. And I think the way the trade was designed was they said we're going to put 100% tariffs on any chips that you import to the U.S. You like to sell here, but it's going to cost you big time unless you make some of your products here. So for all the chips that you make here, we'll give you a certain amount of credits that will delete the tariffs for other chips that you want to bring in. And that I'm not mad about that actually. The black people should really have a policy like that that says if you want to sell to the black community, because everyone loves to get black people buying stuff from them. Literally, we should say if you want to sell to us, then you have to invest in us. If you don't invest in us, then you can't sell to us. That's simple economics because the problem for the black community is that you've got what is called a trade deficit. You buy everybody else's stuff, but don't nobody really feel the need to invest in you. They can come up in, they can set up a nail shop in the hood and take all the money and won't even contribute to the local softball team. They won't even get you bring your little league, your little 8-year-old football team, to the salon and say, hey, can you make a donation? They're like, no, we don't give money to Negroes, right? Negroes give money to us. And so economic thinking, at the very least, can lead to an understanding of simple reciprocity. And reciprocity just means, look, if you want something from me, you got to give me something too. You got to be fair to me. I'm gonna hook you up, but you got to come up in here and come correct, right? And I don't understand why that's such a problematic concept for so many people. There are people who get mad at you, black people who get mad when you say, I think we should negotiate a better deal. Anything of value that you give to other people, you should receive value in exchange because that's the difference between having a fair trade versus just blatant exploitation. And so as hard as black people work, as many resources as we have, there's absolutely no reason black people should be poor. We should have the most prosperous neighborhoods and communities on the freaking planet. The question is, why is that not happening? All the billions that just the churches alone. We talked about the churches. If all the churches embraced economic intelligence, it just as a fundamental requirement for everyone, like that little cartoon where we just went through all the different types of assets and all the kids are like, oh, I know what an annuity is. I know what a commodity is, right? Basic stuff like that elevates you so much. You talk about economic elevation, that will elevate you psychologically, it will elevate you spiritually, it will elevate you in terms of security, and it will sure as hell elevate you financially. Absolutely. 'Cause your financial scenario, your financial outcomes are pretty much nothing but a manifestation of everything that's already going on inside of you. So if you've embraced the ignorance, if you've embraced the self-destruction, if you haven't healed the trauma, if you embrace the negative thinking, then your finances are simply going to be a symptom of everything internally that's already happening. But if you've embraced the investing, if you've embraced the discipline, if you've embraced the sacrifice, if you've embraced the long-term thinking, then guess what? You're driving up in something nice and you've got money in the bank because all that is none of that defines you. That car doesn't define you, that money doesn't define you, that status does not define you because all those things are nothing more than symptoms of who you actually are. Do you understand what I'm saying? So my goal is not to convince you to change your financial situation. My goal is to convince you to elevate yourself. If you elevate yourself, then everything will fall into place. I assure you. I promise you. But it takes work. It's really hard. Breaking habits is really hard. That's why in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, I talk extensively about culture and habits. Habit formation and culture. That's where the culprit is. If we shift that, then we shift everything. If we get in the habit of being great, then we're going to be great. We get in the habit of building wealth, we're going to build wealth. We get in the habit of investing, we're going to be investing. We get in the habit of learning economics, we're going to be the best economic thinkers on the planet. And this goes back to Project 2070 that I established in 2013. 2013, I did a whole tour across the country speaking about Project 2070. Project 2070, which I wrote about in another book called Wealth, Education, Family, and Community, A New Paradigm for Black America. Actually, the formal title was It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar. In this book, I said, if Black people do these simple things, then by the year 2070, African Americans, not all Black people everywhere, I'm talking about African Americans starting there, we will be known around the world as the greatest wealth builders on the planet. We will be known in the same way that they recognize the Jewish community and Asian communities, other communities, because I know for a fact that when we put our minds to something, we become the greatest ever. We become so good at things when we put our minds to it. We just have to let go of the trash and start grabbing onto the gold, right? So let's drop the garbage and get to the elevation. That's how we're going to succeed. All right. So anyway, let's finish up. It was great to see everybody. God bless you. Quickly, next week, I think Friday night, we'll do a financial slumber party. So I'll send you guys a link. I'll text it out. Make sure you're on the text list for the class. Text the word morning to the number 87948. I'll let you guys know about this as that evolves. And then on Tuesday, of course, on the 20th, I think that's Tuesday night at 8:30, we're going to do stock options. So if you want to do stock options with us, just go to drboyceprime.com. And also you can text the word options to the number 87948. And if you text options to 87948, I'll send you a notification whenever we do anything with stock options, because that's really a cool thing to understand. All right, so have a good day, everybody. God bless you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on a Saturday. I love you. See you guys soon. Take care. Peace.